Hey, this is Ryder Timberlake. I'm just broadcasting some Elixir programming on a text adventure project I've had running in the background for a while. This is my first time trying this process. It's just going to be a short little out and back, so to speak, less than half an hour on the clock, I figure. And we'll see how it goes. And if it works well, I might try and do something similar for Grin and Parrot or some other sort of developer-y oriented series. So let's get started. Just going to share my screen here. Inception. All right. So let's bring up VS Code, which is where I've got this stuff open. If I full screen it, I'm pretty sure I'll lose the camera. Yup. So we'll keep that there for the time being. I'm using this cool little widget called CamDesk, which my friend Sam Joseph at Agile Ventures told me about. It's really, really fun, and I'm hoping to make more use of it in the future. So, high level overview of this. This is a text adventure game that my buddy Daniel Berlin wrote a number of years ago and entered in an Adrift interactive fiction contest. Adrift is interactive fiction framework that's been around for a number of years. And he wrote this really awesome game called Give Me Your Lunch Money. And I ended up composing the music for it. It was a real pleasure to work on that project. And essentially, I just think it's a great game, and I'd like more people to play it, and I'd like people to have the convenience of not having to download Adrift in order to do it. And then on the other hand, I had this real desire to dig into Elixir, which for me is the most exciting ecosystem out there at the moment, this Erlang ecosystem with this pretty Ruby accessible, Ruby-ish accessible syntax around it. So I really, really am excited about doing it. And I'll just get going. I strongly suspect no one's watching. I haven't tweeted this. I don't know if stuff goes out to my subscribers if I do a video. If you are watching live, hey, hello. And I'm just coming back to this for the first time in a long time. I have an issue where, and this was true as an artist too, where I'd start up too many projects and wouldn't end up finishing a lot. And so that's something that over time I'm trying to correct. So this was the main side project I had going for a while in Elixir. I'm just coming back to it. And as I said, trying to familiarize myself with the project again, because it's been a very long time since I've looked at it. I've had some friends pair with me on this, and I've been super grateful for that process and for their input. That Steve Grossi over at Lessonly, and then again, Sam Joseph at Agile Ventures. Really grateful for their assistance and their perspective, and it's definitely helped inform the development of this project. Elixir, as I said, really exciting ecosystem. And as I said, just a quick out and back, since I've already spent, 5 to 7 minutes with the preamble. Oh, maybe just 5-ish. I've got the thing set up. It's 8:18 on a Saturday evening right now. The thing is set to turn off at 8:45. So I'm curious also to see if it'll give me a warning, if it'll just cut off, if this video just cuts off. That's the reason. So yeah, we'll go ahead and get started. I've organized this project into modules, as you do in functional programming. Don't have any objects. I'm not tangling state and behavior in the same space, which for me is really important. And the more experience I get with programming in a functional ecosystem, the more frustrating and limiting I find the object-oriented system. Not to say that you can't write beautiful OO code, but it just seems like there's some fundamentally sort of not conforming with how things would ideally be organized, things in OO that are just pushing us towards actually tangling responsibilities, shunting multiple things that are not alike into under the umbrella of an object. And of course, there is much less pushing us away from side effects, whereas in functional in a functional paradigm, there is an overwhelming amount of pressure pushing us away from using side effects in our code, which I really respect and I really enjoy. And Elixir also, of course, making documentation and testing first-class citizens, which is really, really cool. I've tried to do this project TDD style. I am gonna spend 20 minutes doing the preamble for a 30-minute video. So let's run some tests. Let's see here, projects, CD Elixir. No, of course, there's nothing there. Portal, reminder, robophone friend, GMYLN, give me your lunch money. Running mixed test. Let's see what state the suite is in. Lots of warnings there, but everything is at least passing. Yeah, so that's just a bunch of unused aliases, especially, as I said, in this video, I'm mainly just trying to get back into the code and get some idea of what's going on, since it's been so long since I've worked on this project. It's been months. Yeah, so I just need to sort of look at stuff and remind myself what things are. So here on 41, of course, not just for the project, but for Elixir in general. Here on 41, of course, we've got the spec type. So we've got this look function, which takes in a player struct and a world struct, and it's going to return an atom, which is a status code in this case. It's going to return a string, it's going to return a player struct, and it's going to return a world struct. So a lot of our methods, a lot of our functions in this program are taking in the state of the world and giving back the state of the world, because we've got this game loop and we're just constantly passing in the state of everything. And we're doing that every time we go through the loop. There's nothing outside of that loop which is somehow holding state. That state is getting explicitly passed in on every run through. So yeah, and then we've got some doc tags here, which are specifying what each thing is doing. This really simple initialize player, which just creates a new empty player struct. And we've got our def struct up here. This definitely, I look at it and it looks gross. I'm not really sure why I decided to do it this way. Like it's kind of, to me, this is sort of suboptimal, let's say. I don't know if this looks terrible to people, if there's somebody screaming at the screen right now, saying, no, that's the worst, you're the worst. The main thing here, of course, being that I'm putting this def struct up here and this down here, but I don't know if it's a bad practice, but it doesn't look bad to me. And I can find, it certainly looks better than the way it was a moment ago. And I can figure out a better way to do it. Oh, I can feel it. Somebody hates this. Somebody just thinks this is the worst thing. But it means somebody's watching my video. So hey, how's it going? Let's see here. So I just organized this a little bit differently. Let's go ahead and put this list on the same list of strings on the same line. And let's run the test suite, because it's entirely possible it's not gonna like this. The compiler is not gonna like this and it won't compile. Yup. Okay, so on 20, we unexpectedly reach the end of the line. Yeah, current expression is valid or incomplete. So I suspect if well, I don't actually suspect at all that this will fix it, but I suspect that the way in which I've chosen to organize the code, which you'll notice I reorganized the whole thing before I ran it to see if it would compile, which was bad. That was a bad practice. I should have changed one thing and run the test suite. All right, so it thinks that's okay. Well, I like this and I don't like it. Maybe Yeah? Does this make you hate it less? I just want to be able to see everything. Like I came in here as essentially a newcomer to this project, which is what you are if you haven't done the thing in a long time. And so I'm seeing some of these things with fresh eyes. And I come in and I see, hey, I can't see all the keys that are associated with this gmylm.player struct. And I think I should be able to just see them all and have it be, easy to look at things at a glance and understand what's going on. So let's do that first. As you see, I just moved everything to put it at the same level of indentation with this location here. Somebody, I'm sure, still hates this, but Oh, so we compiled and we ran the test suite and everything's fine. So actually, what I'd like to do is line everything up with this here. And there's really no reason this should fail to compile. I've just lined everything up. Something VS Code doesn't like this for some reason. There should be no trailing white space at the end of the line. Oh, there is trailing white space. But yeah, okay. That's fine. So I've got the VS Code Credo plugin, which is letting me know that stuff is bad. I suspect that's what this is too, is no trailing white space at end of line. I don't know if if Credo like Rubocop has, like that Rubocop -A, that's really convenient in the Ruby ecosystem, like Ruby's linter, because a lot of the really easy stuff, it'll just handle for you if you do Rubocop -A. I don't know if something like that exists in Elixir that you can do Credo -A. Seems like a bit of a tangent. And since, again, my ostensibly stated goal is to just get my eye on this project and sort of figure it out again, that's what I'm going to do. This doesn't look right, this hanging curly brace. Oh, that's what you were screaming at me about earlier. Okay. I get it. I put a space on this location, I'm pretty sure it's going to fail to compile. I think that's no. I'm not sure how I feel about this. So location, description. For maps, I don't know. 2 spaces, 4 spaces. Don't know. I'm just having this internal debate right now as to whether I want to have 2 or 4 spaces. Bike shedding on the first time, none of it matters, and I'm bike shedding. Just spending some time doing useless adjustments to the code that tomorrow I'll hate. I'm in the bike shedding, and the first time that I've looked in this project in a couple months, I'm gonna waste all my time talking higher level, doing useless things. Doing useless things with the code that don't matter. Doing useless things with the code that don't matter. Useless things with the code that don't matter. Gonna waste everybody's time. Gonna waste everybody's time. All right. We are just about done with that pointless adjustment that tomorrow I will hate. Nope. Ooh, gross. This is gross. Why did I think this was a good idea? Oh my gosh. Oh dude, this I really don't like this. But it looks better than it did when I first got here. Oh my gosh, this is all right. Let's get some idea of what we've got in our staging, because I have not looked at this in a long time. Oh, I lost my thingamajigger. There we go. All right, so this is a data dump, which I pretty much never want to commit, and it's not really useful for me to have, so I feel like I should just get rid of it. So I could permanently ignore it. I wonder if that ignore will add it to the get ignore or what it'll do. Oh, it will. It will. Oh, that's kind of cool. Oh, I like that. Guys, I had never used that in GitHub Desktop before. Just the right click ignore and it adds it to the get ignore. I think that's a cool feature. All right. Def struct location. Oh, so good. Good. I had, all right. That's cool. Can I look at the history? See what I've been doing recently? Test some functionality to start changing the interface controls 3 implementation over to return a list of module func args instead of a function. So I love this change, by the way. This is something Steve Grossi turned me on to, was Elixir's kernel.apply method, which takes in a module, a function, and some arguments. And you can just do the coolest things with it. Yeah, kernel. So there's a kernel.apply/3 and a kernel.apply/2. If you've not worked in Elixir Erlang before, I would have figured other functional ecosystems like Clojure or Haskell or Scala would have this potentially as well. But certainly in Erlang, it's a widespread convention where you will have a function that will also have a slash followed by the arity of that function, the number of arguments which it takes, and that will specify exactly what it is you're working with. Game loop, blah, blah, blah. Responsibilities: receive a command, returns a tuple of module function name and list of arguments. That, oh, this is something I think also that Steve may have done, and I think it's a great practice, and I wish I did it more often. And so having that wish, right? Just having that wish, I will surely do it more often. If I have that repeated wish and don't lose it, the opportunity to do that in my day-to-day will arise. But just this notion of, when you're building something, let's get explicit. It doesn't have to stay and live in the code, but let's get explicit about what the responsibilities are for whatever it is we're building, so that it's really, really clear. If we have a couple of responsibilities that we schlumped under the same function or class or method, whatever it is we're doing, right? Just to get clear for ourselves and for other maintainers on the project, what responsibilities are involved, and that'll inform our decisions in terms of how we organize the code. So I think this is really cool. I'm virtually certain it's Steve who put this out here. Because some of those best practices, you can breeze by them thinking, oh yeah, no, I'm already thinking about that. If you actually put it down on paper, as it were, it forces you to confront it, and there's less possibility for maybe in an emotional moment because there's a deadline, kind of breezing past it and falling into a bad pattern. Interface.control/3. It should return a tuple of a module function and arguments for direct. Oh, sorry. If anybody's asking questions on the Hangout, I don't see them. This is the first time I've ever done this. I have no idea what they are. If you have a question that you've asked, I suspect no. I think I'll get some kind of ping. Sorry. If you want to ask a question, feel free to ask a question. And if you asked a question during this time that I did not answer or respond to in any way whatsoever, please just, send me a message or a tweet or something at Ryder Timberlake and be like, hey, man, why didn't you answer my question? And I'll be like, oh, sorry, I didn't see it. I don't know how to do this. Tested should return a tuple of module function and arguments for look. Yeah, so one convention I've fallen into in this project is overwhelmingly I return a status code at the beginning. And this is a sort of a convention in Erlang, and then you can have different behavior based on the status code that's being kicked back. And I don't know if it's really doing me any good. I asked Steve about it one time, and he said that I guess he'd seen some project, or maybe it was Ben at the Indie Elixir meetup, that he'd seen someone who always did that and always was kicking back some kind of status code. And he didn't seem to think it was a bad practice. and it's already the way it is throughout the code. So I figure it is a little bit of overhead. So I'll continue doing it. Again, I really don't know how much use it will be, especially if I'm not really going to be leveraging like actors or supervision trees, likely, at least certainly for a first iteration, given the complexity of the app and my unfamiliarity with said things. But yeah, should return a tuple of module function arguments for quit. Let's just look at this as if it was a totally new project so I can have some idea of how this evolved. That's one thing I really like to do when I get onto a new project, is just sift through the commit history, especially when it's a project of such relatively manageable size and complexity. To really, it's going to allow me to sort of rehash and go over the decisions I've made, what I've been trying to do, how I've gotten here. So that would be an excellent use of my time, actually. And I could even see myself taking a couple of 30-minute episodes just to do that, because as I said, looking at this project now, it's like I have no idea what was I thinking. I've written documentation, I've written tests. That goes a long way and it helps a lot. But like, I just don't know what I'm doing with this project anymore, and I want to go back and get past writers' perspective, and have something I can go forward with. So git ignore the Erlang crash dump, of course. README. My README is not very useful at this stage. I don't think it's really changed much past this. So at some point, I need to go back and do that. I'm having a brief doubt as to whether I'm still broadcasting, but it's just my OCD. It's just my OCD. What am I looking for? Oh my gosh. I was in VS Code right here. No. I was in GitHub Desktop. All right, I know, let's port G and blah, 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 blah. All right. I'm gonna move this up a little bit, or move my face somewhere. No, I hate that. No, face should stay in the same place. You can configure blah, 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 access this configuration in the config.exs, gmylm. So yeah, I just, right. That was the basic module that Elixir gave me when I did mix new and then the name of the project, gmylm. And then I made some of these locations. Yeah, so I made a bunch of stuff kind of in this first commit. I didn't really do anything, but it looks like I made a couple modules in addition to the stuff that mix new gmylm gave me out of the box. Dependencies, bunt, hex, blah, 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 gmylm test. Oh, and I wrote some tests too, that exists. So this is a cool little thing you may have seen before, and certainly if you've worked in Elixir before, you'll have seen it at some point, very likely, is calling on a given module this dot, underscore, dunder, info, dunder, and then passing it this atom of functions. Things that look like Ruby symbols and Erlang are called atoms, or in Elixir, I think. I mean, no, they also exist in Erlang. I just don't know if they're signified in the same way with that colon. I believe they are. Yeah, because when you call Erlang libraries directly, you do it with that colon at the beginning. So I highly suspect that's a convention that was borrowed from Erlang and just happened to be quite harmonious for Elixir learners transitioning over from Ruby. There's been quite the influx. There's a lot of shared kind of understanding and design priorities in Elixir, that a lot of them are informed, if not informed by Ruby, which you could easily argue, right? Because Jose Valim was a Rails core contributor for years, I think, but at least heavily influenced, or if not, at least they share things, right? Regardless of the origin. gmylm.location. Okay, so then I started doing stuff. I started making a struct for locations, which is going to have this on ground list. And I guess it looks like the first function, one of the first functions I wrote was add object, gmylm.world.location. Okay. Restore info about object and object functions, where we store info about the player and player methods. So I capitalize these. Async true. I got rid of that async true. I think by default, XUnit will run the tests async. Test that exists, blah, 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 location at object /2. Again, just looking through the commit history very early on in that phase, but just trying to look at the first things I did when I was spinning up this project. It has locations. Okay, unifying and making more accurate module doc descriptions, right? So where we store info about objects and object functions, object data structure and object functions. This object, of course, not to be confused with an object from OO. This is a struct, and in this case, it's just like the things in the game, like they might be traps or trap ingredients and stuff. And there's sort of a whole conversation and design decision waiting to happen about how I want to handle those things. Do I want them to be separate things? And so on and so forth. Don't know. We'll get to it. gmylm.world module doc, where we store world data, blah blah blah. So adding player object location function tests. Also added a bunch of new keys to the gmylm.world.location struct. Location data structure and location functions. Aliasing some things because I need to be able to have them here. Although, like you saw earlier in the episode, right, when we run the mixed test right now, we got a whole, that's all the warnings we're getting, it seems, is unneeded aliases. So if we wanted to, we could go through and prune them at some point. They don't really bother me that much, but adds an item to a location. Okay, adds an object to a location because I wanted there to be this symmetry between what I'm calling it in the docs and what I'm actually calling it in the module, which I think is important. If you have a divergence in your code between what you call something in your inline documentation or in your actual documentation and what is actually being called in the code, that's just one more point to introduce a cognitive wobble for maintainers of the code base. And in certain contexts, those things can already be extremely damaging, but certainly if you have them scattered throughout the code base, you've got a death by 1,000 cuts scenario where it is so difficult for anyone to understand anything about your code because you're calling it one thing in the naming of the class or the method or whatever, and you're calling it another thing in your documentation. And there's no reason to do that. Sometimes it happens because you got to change some names of stuff, maybe because you're pulling in a third-party library. I have no idea, and you're trying to sort of sync up what your stuff is with what that stuff is, but then you forget to change it in your documentation, and now your documentation is referencing the old thing, but your actual code is referencing the new thing. It's not good. Those things should be kept synchronized, and documentation, in my opinion, should really be considered a vital, indispensable part of any code that you ever write. Any code of any size and complexity that has any potential to be looked at by future you with a break in between now and then or by other maintainers needs documentation, indispensable in that case. So this plus plus is not like an increment by one. This is what you do for list concatenation in Elixir. All right, so we just are doing for this add object, blah, 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 blah. All right, so my thingamajigger, my recording, the episode's almost over, and it might just cut me off, as I mentioned before. So what we've done, we've come back to this Give Me Your Lunch Money port we are doing of an excellent Adrift game made by my friend Daniel Berlin and scored by me back in 2009. I encourage you to go check it out. It's a lot of fun. And we'll pick this up again another day and continue reading through the code and figuring out where we are with this project and how we can spin it up again. Hope everybody has a lovely evening. Take care.